Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargava, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. Back in 2017, a three-member committee headed by the retired High Court judge, Justice Hema, was formed to look into allegations of abuse and the treatment of women within the Malayalam film industry. This committee's report has now revealed that the industry witnesses rampant sexual abuse, fails to provide even basic facilities to women, and fosters abysmal working conditions for its junior artists. Today, we are dedicating this entire episode to talk about the revelations of this report and the recommendations that the committee offers. And for this, we are first joined by Pooja Pillai, who is part of the Indian Express's opinion team. Pooja, for those who might not be as familiar with it, can you tell us a bit about the scale and the prominence of the Malayalam film industry?
So the Malayalam film industry is pretty old and it goes back to before independence. I think that was when the first Malayalam film was made. It is not a very big film industry. Its market size is pretty much limited to Kerala and maybe to some Malayalis who live in Tamil Nadu and, Bangalore, Karnataka, those places. And certainly Malayalis who live in the Gulf and other places abroad. It is, in fact, the smallest of the South Indian film industries. It is significantly smaller than the Telugu and the Tamil film industry for sure. What makes Malayalam cinema different, especially now, is the quality of its content. Most of the films are made on what would be described as a medium-sized budget. There is a greater appetite for risk in terms of the content, in terms of the cast, etc., which makes it easier for Malayalam filmmakers to explore all kinds of stories. If you look at the National Film Awards list, you will see Malayalam film is one of the top winners in several categories across the decades. I think it also picked up a pan-Indian audience beginning in the pandemic when Netflix and all these other streaming platforms, they started showcasing movies like your Kumbalangi Nights. The Great Indian Kitchen became a huge, it was a sleeper hit, right? And this year, in fact, Malayalam cinema has stood out because it seems to be the only cinema that has done well commercially in the country. The big hits or the expected big releases of Telugu cinema and Tamil cinema have flopped. Bollywood certainly has not performed to expectations. In the first half of this year alone, I think 3 films really dominated, and they were from Kerala. They were Manyumal Boys, which did fantastically well. There was Aadu Jeevitham, which is based on the award-winning book by Benjamin, The Goat Life, and Avesham. Avesham did phenomenally well, and it stars Fahad Fasil, who I think arguably is now a pan-Indian star. Everyone knows who Fafa is. So in terms of quality of content is where Malayalam cinema's impact has been. Perhaps not so much in numbers or market size. But that may change. That may change based on the growing appetite for this kind of content.
Now, Pooja, the reason, of course, we are talking about the Malayalam film industry is because of the ugly reality highlighted in the Hema Committee report. Tell us what this report is and what led to the formation of this committee.
So this began in February 2017 when an actor was abducted and sexually assaulted. This incident shocked the industry. It led to a group of women actors in the industry to form what is called the Women in Cinema Collective. They basically started talking more and more about the conditions that women face in the film industry, the threat of sexual harassment and assault, online bullying, even the kind of content often, while there is extremely good quality international level content also in Malayalam cinema, there's also a lot of misogynistic content. So this conversation really picked up speed when the police investigation revealed that one of the main conspirators behind the abduction and sexual assault of the actor was another prominent actor in the industry. And this opened up a whole can of worms about how women are treated and basically the everyday threats that they face just going about their jobs.
It's a story that's making huge waves across the country, this time from Kerala, where the state police have arrested 4 culprits among the 7 accused who are involved in the molestation of a noted young Malayalam actress.
They allegedly assaulted her sexually and also took pictures of her in compromising position to blackmail her.
Remember, the mastermind of this incident is on the run. The Chief Minister has directed the police to intensify its operation to nab him, and with the mastermind being a repeat offender and has worked...
I think just the sheer audacity of the attack caused people to feel shocked. Like, they were certainly shocked that this happened, because when something like this happens in an industry which is arguably the pride of the state, then it certainly leads to a lot of shocked reactions, for sure. So this incident marked the moment when the state actually sat up and started talking about this problem openly, and this charge was led by the Women in Cinema Collective. So they also put pressure on the state government to form a committee to investigate the problems faced by women in the industry, and that led to the formation of the Justice Hema Committee, which also includes Sharda, who's a former actor, and Valsala Kumari, who is a retired IAS officer. The committee worked for, I think, 2 years, talking to several witnesses, and they have recorded, in fact, the difficulties that they faced in the report that they finally submitted. But 2 years later, December 2019 is when they submitted their report to the Kerala government. The government claims that when the pandemic happened, it could not release the report, and basically that is what delayed the release of the report all this while, even though there was constant pressure, not just from the Women in Cinema Collective, but other civil society organizations. The media was asking a lot of questions.
Right, and the Kerala government even said that it is only a committee and not a commission, so they are not bound to make it public. And plus, there were concerns regarding the privacy of the individuals who had spoken to the committee.
Yes. So the main reason that the government cited for not releasing the report all these years, nearly 5 years, was the privacy of the individuals that the committee has spoken to. Although, of course, the chief minister, he did say in the House in response to, I think, opposition criticism that, this was not a commission. We were not bound to put the report out. So yeah, that certainly happened. There have been other hurdles also. Like, there has in fact been a lot of drama in the last month alone. There were 5 individual petitions filed, and then the State Information Commission said the report has to be released. The portions that affect the privacy of individuals can be redacted. Then there was petition filed by a film producer asking to stay the release of the report. So the High Court stayed the release of the report while it heard the matter. Then the petition was dismissed, and again it was ordered to be released on the 17th of August. And finally, it was released only on August 19th, and in between there was yet another attempt to stop its release when one of the women, an actor who had spoken to the committee, said that this affects privacy and I have the right to see what report says because I'm one of the people they've spoken to. But anyway, that was also set aside, and finally on August 19th, a redacted version came out.
Right, about 60 odd pages of the report have been redacted. But tell us, what are some of its key findings?
Since the committee was formed primarily to investigate the conditions of women working in the film industry, that is its main focus, although it goes into several other areas which are also pretty dispiriting reading. On women, there is extensive harassment. There's a line in the report which says that every woman in the film industry is familiar with these 2 words, compromise and adjustment. And this is particularly disheartening to hear, because what it shows is that every woman at every level, even before she has entered the film industry, when she's just looking for a job, when she's just asking for a role in a movie, has to encounter sexual harassment. It goes right from the junior artist to the biggest stars, is the indication that we see in the report. There's another phrase used in the report, which is late night knock on the door, where when women are on film sets, they often find that late at night, crew members or cast members or whoever's associated with the film will demand to be let in to their room. And the report says that these are not soft or polite knocks. These are like, sometimes it's banging on the door, and the women fear for their lives often. This is just the part, about the sexual threat that women face in the film industry. But then there's also the part, which again is pretty horrifying to read, that there is no provision for separate toilets. There is no provision for separate changing rooms. Women have to hold the urge to urinate for hours together. Many of them don't drink water through the day. Several in the report have said that they have even ended up in hospital because of infections that they have got as a result of this very unhealthy practice.
Right. And the other big thing that the report mentions is that the industry is dominated by a powerful mafia that allows these things to happen.
Yes. So the mafia has been rumored to exist for a very long time in the Malayalam film industry. And it's not just the women talking about it, it's also the men. What they say is there is a group of men. There's a group of men that includes actors, producers, whatever, who are very powerful, who will control everything that goes on within the industry. If you say something out of turn, if you say something that displeases them, then they may unofficially ban you, in the sense that they will probably call up a director that you're working with and tell that director, listen, if you're working with this person, I'm not going to work with you, or so and so is not going to work with you. So that works as an unofficial ban, and this has resulted, they claim, in loss of job for many in the industry. Like, many have left the industry, and generally people at the junior artist level end up not going back if anyone dares to speak up about the malpractices within the industry.
And Pooja, considering we are talking about this mafia and the extent to which it controls things, could you talk about what the report highlights about why women find it difficult to speak out about these issues?
So one of the striking things in the report for me was the fact that until the WCC was formed in 2017, the women did not even talk to each other about their experiences. So that shows how much the fear had set in. They were so afraid to speak about their experiences, about the bullying or the harassment that they had faced, that they were not even talking to each other. Whereas generally we do know, like when it comes to sexual harassment, unofficially there is always this network of women who are sharing information. This is how we found out about the Harvey Weinstein scandal in the US, right? Because women were talking to each other, the journalists followed the women, and that is how they got the information. But here, even that didn't exist until the formation of the WCC. That is when they started speaking up openly. But even after that, and again, I think this shows how serious the problem is, even after that, many of the members of the WCC said that they lost jobs, they were not cast in movies, they were not getting offers. So certainly the threat seemed to be real for many who spoke up. And even some of the men that the committee spoke to, they said the same thing, that the moment we started speaking up about these things, offers started drying up and we were sort of pushed to the sidelines.
And earlier you were talking about how even some of the very basic facilities are not provided to women. But the report also mentions the wage gap that continues to exist between men and women. Tell us what the report says regarding that.
So the wage gap certainly exists, and it exists across the board, not just in the acting department. But this is, of course, not just a problem in the Malayalam film industry. This is now we have been hearing about pay parity even in Bollywood, right? Women have been demanding pay parity there as well. Alia Bhatt has spoken about it, for example. About junior artists, and this is actually the word that has been used in the report, inhuman conditions, because say a movie requires 20 junior artists for a crowd scene, 100 will be called, and all 100 will be made to wait there, even though, they don't need about 80 of them for hours. There is no place for them to sit. They are usually not even offered food and water. There is no arrangement to drop them back to, the bus stop or their homes or whatever. They often have to make their own way back.
And one imagines that this is all happening in an unorganized manner without any contracts.
Yes, it is. They are also often not paid on time. Like they may be owed a certain amount of money on this date and it doesn't come, or a fraction of that amount comes. So this is a common complaint that the junior artists have.
And you mentioned that the committee also spoke to the men in the industry. What did they have to say about all this?
Many men did speak about the so-called mafia in the Malayalam film industry. Many spoke about the sexual harassment that women face, but many of them also chose that moment to point out that sexual harassment exists in other industries as well. So why is this any different? To which, of course, the logical response, and the committee makes this response in its report, is that unlike in other industries where, a woman may face sexual harassment while she is on the job, in the Malayalam film industry, based on eyewitness accounts, it seems that women face sexual harassment even before they enter the industry. Like, simply to get a job, they will have to go through that. Some of the men, of course, have been pretty supportive. And in fact, men were supportive publicly. There were members of the film industry who were publicly supportive right way back in 2017. Like, they have stood with the survivor. They have stood with the Women in Cinema Collective. But these are not the majority, is what we gather from the report.
And the other thing we should mention is that there are no names revealed in this report, and which they say has been done to ensure privacy of those who spoke to the committee. But can you tell us how the Malayalam film industry and its audiences have reacted to this report?
So in the industry, it's interesting. One of the first responses that I saw was from the Association of Malayalam Movie Artists, AMMA, which is the biggest, and I think it is the only organization for actors in the Malayalam film industry. And their response was, we are working on a stage show right now. We will respond to this later, which is consistent with their response to the whole crisis. Like, right from 2017, there has not been much of an effort to engage with the issues that have been raised by women, whether they are in the WCC or outside of it. In fact, many members of the WCC resigned their membership of the AMMA and joined the WCC. I have not seen any reactions from big stars. Women actors have welcomed the fact that the report is finally out. They are now waiting for the government to move forward with some of the recommendations, to investigate some of the findings, in fact, because based on what we know of the redacted portions of the report, what we've heard, what we can make out from the rest of the report, there seem to be several cognizable offenses there, which the government can investigate and take action against. But people are still waiting for that to happen. The government has also said that they are forming another body to investigate the findings in the report. Amongst audience, there has been shock. A section of the audience which has been supportive of the actor who was assaulted and the women who have stood with her, they have celebrated the release of the report. But then there is also a section that seems to believe that this is a conspiracy to defame the Malayalam film industry. Why are you not looking at other film industries, etc., etc.? Those are the kind of questions being asked.
And what are the recommendations that the committee has made? What are they saying should be done about all this?
So there are two interesting things that they say, two recommendations that I would like to point out. One is a statute. They say that the existing statutes which deal with sexual harassment, etc., they are not sufficient to address the very peculiar situation of the women in the Malayalam film industry. So we need a separate statute for that, number one. Number two, within that statute, they recommend the formation of a tribunal. Now, they say this because there was a demand raised right from 2017 for ICC's, Internal Complaints Committee, as mandated by the POSH Act, to be set up on film sets. And in fact, a couple of years ago, the Kerala High Court did rule that film sets need to have the ICC. But what the committee believes is, and they have said this in the report, that even the ICCs, their role and their function could be subverted because of the huge power asymmetry that exists within the Malayalam film industry, where, a small group of men seems to dominate everything. So it could be subverted, which is why a tribunal is needed, which will be, headed by a retired judge, and will be completely independent. They will investigate any complaints that come before them. And so they think a tribunal will be independent and it can actually conduct a proper investigation into each of these claims. So these two are the main recommendations as far as sexual harassment and sexual threats are concerned. Another very interesting, very good recommendation actually is that there should be contracts. There are no contracts at the moment, it seems, in the Malayalam film industry. And the contracts will determine not only how much everyone is paid and, that they are paid on time, etc., but also that the facilities they ask for. For example, when a woman actor stipulates in her contract that I need my accommodation to be within so many minutes of the location, she gets that. And she is not forced to, travel in possibly unsafe transport to reach wherever the accommodation is.
And Pooja, after reviewing this report, do we get a sense that the Malayalam film industry is an exception in these matters?
To someone who is going simply by this report, it may seem so, but it is not. Because even in Bollywood, people like Jaya Bachchan and Asha Parekh have spoken about having to change clothes behind, a length of cloth that is held up by two people. Again, they have talked about not drinking water for very long because there are no washrooms for them. Like during their period, they can't even change their sanitary napkins. They'll have to go behind a bush and do that. So I do not believe that the Malayalam film industry is an exception. In fact, if such a committee were formed to make a similar investigation in all the film industries, the findings would be similarly horrifying.
The revelations of sexual abuse and harassment have continued to shake the Malayalam film industry over the past week. In fact, shortly after this recording yesterday, 3 major developments took place. First, senior actor Siddiqui resigned as the General Secretary of the Association of Malayalam Movie Artists, or AMMA, which Pooja talked about earlier. This resignation came a day after a woman actor alleged that he had raped her when she was young. This actor has now stated that she is prepared to take legal action against Siddiqui provided the government assures her protection. Second, director Ranjit stepped down as chairman of the state-run Kerala Chalachitra Academy following allegations by Bengali actor Srilekha Mitra that he had misbehaved with her in 2009. And third, the Kerala government formed a 7-member team of high-ranking police officers to look into all these allegations of sexual misconduct. Now, even though we are talking about the Malayalam film industry, some of these problems are prevalent within other film industries as well. We are now joined by Indian Express's film critic Shubhra Gupta to talk more about this issue. Shubhra, one big reason that such problems exist, of course, is because of how prevalent patriarchy continues to be, how male-dominated things are, but it's also because of how unorganized this industry seems to be. Now, is that the case with just the Malayalam film industry, or do we find that in other places as well?
I'm very intrigued by the fact that you said that it is unorganized, the Malayalam film industry, that is, because from what we hear and from what I'm aware of in terms of the fact that it is a tiny industry, but with the kind of impact that it pushes it punches above its weight across all kinds of segments, and it always has done. So contrary to what you've just said, what I'm hearing or what I've heard is that it is much more organized than a lot of the other film industries in the country, specifically because it's a smaller state and because a lot of these people are concentrated in Kochi, where all the filmmaking, primarily the actors, the producers, the distributors, a lot of these people are sort of concentrated in Kochi and around. So it's not like it's as vast as, say, Bollywood, for example. I mean, the Hindi film industry is something which has heft over the last, let's say, more than 100 years. And I think the kind of prevalence of what we've seen in this report, if it ever comes to Bollywood, I think the findings will be X times as much.
And so there are no contracts in Bollywood as well?
Barely. I mean, you will find any conversation about contracts only happening in the last 5 years, 10 years. Outer of the last 15 years, everything is verbal. It's like Kampa Rajao. Okay, there are guilds which are supposed to be taking care of the rights of the workers, of the people who are junior artists, of people who are in the various guilds, screenwriting guilds, producers guilds, all of that. But a lot of it is on paper. There's a very little recourse to what someone can do when the money that is promised to them disappears. I doubt whether there are any contracts unless it is really a big studio and which is now pushing itself towards the kind of best ethical practices that everyone follows. I think the film industry is the one place which is always looking to the future. I mean, it's future forward in so many ways, but I think it still functions in this kind of, my bap kind of culture where you get your jobs because you know someone, not because you're good at it.
And so, Shubhra, what do you think it will take for something like this to happen in other film industries, especially an industry like Bollywood?
My feeling is that it will possibly be the most difficult thing to pull off in Bollywood, because it is even more of a boys' club than the small industry in Kerala. This is, I would say, that all the big studios, all the big stars, everybody, they have always controlled and will keep continuing to control the way Bollywood functions in every aspect of filmmaking. So to have something like this happen in Bollywood would take some kind of seismic shift. It will largely depend upon whether the person who's at the center of the controversy in Kerala, a very, very powerful actor, whose name some reports take, some reports do not take. So let's leave it as the most powerful actor. Will that person be prosecuted? Will that person be held to account? If that happens, because it literally will change everything. To have something like this happen is really important. The next step I feel, in my opinion, will be even more important. That what do you do with this? Now that you have this information, which is taken, by the way, so much out of the women who actually got together for this collective, because they were not given work. They were not. Beena Paul, for example, she is one of the most vocal voices and one of the most wonderful people who actually has been part of the industry, speaks for it when in her commitments outside of Kerala, and was also found herself at the receiving end of things which she perhaps has not been able to talk about, in terms of the fact that jobs for her seem to have dried up. And so I just hope that, one can hope and pray, and that the push just doesn't stop here. Now, it should be some kind of a movement, and which should just not be allowed to be derailed by anybody at all.
You were listening to Three Things by The Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava, and was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can tweet us at Express Podcast and write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.